stocks are slipping a little bit here into the close. Let's zoom out and talk about the big picture. Fixed income, international investing. Kathy Jones and Michelle Gibley join me for the big picture discussion. Kathy's the chief fixed income strategist, and Michelle's director of international research. Good afternoon, ladies. Great to have you here on a Monday. Kathy, get us started. Let's talk some bonds. We got a little pushback today in treasuries to the overall selling trend. Anything notable in your mind?
I think it was mostly unwinding election trades. We had the kind of Trump trade going on. People got very enthusiastic about, and now it's time to pull that back and wait to see what the actual results are. So more than anything, it looked like positioning and unwinding those positions going into the actual event.
What about Fed on Wednesday? Is that playing how big of a role? Is it backseat driving, or is it like still at home?
Yeah, my impression is that nothing's really changed with the Fed. They'll cut 25 basis points because that's what they've signaled. The question is going to be around forward guidance. Will we hear that they're inclined to pause perhaps at the December meeting because there have been so many revisions to the previous data? They can't get a clean read because of the hurricanes and the strikes. So they may sit back and say, we got this far. We think another 25 is appropriate. Rates are pretty high relative to inflation, but we're really not sure going forward. And at this point, they could skip the meeting in December, take a measured pace, kind of wait and see what the landscape is after December, and get a read on everything that's going to go on in 2025.
All right. And obviously, we know that the Fed acts independently of these other events and other central banks, too. But, Michelle, they're not the only one on the calendar this week. We've got Bank of England, too, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's a couple of central banks meeting besides the Fed. Also on Thursday, the Bank of England expected to cut rates by 25 basis points. And also Sweden's central bank is expected to announce a 50 basis point cut. And Sweden could cut another 25 in December, resulting in a year-end rate of 2.5%. That would be the lowest among the major central banks. Inflation in Sweden is down to 1.6% and falling, and economic growth there is slowing.
So generally, rest of the world, for the most part, on fairly similar paths towards easing. We can paint with a pretty broad brush when we look beyond, Michelle?
Yeah, I would say that inflation is falling a little bit faster outside of the U.S., and most of the central banks started cutting rates sooner. And so that's why they're kind of continuing on their path, and even some of them stepping up to 50 basis point cuts.
Kathy, does that keep the dollar at least stable if even though we're going 25, if everybody else is still kind of clamoring to go a little faster?
Yeah, it probably keeps the dollar pretty firm. It's been in this broad trading range for about 2 years, but as long as you have that wide yield spread, it's really hard to be short the dollar for any length of time because the cost of carry is so expensive. So I think that we'll continue to see, this 200 basis point difference between yields elsewhere in the developed world and the U.S. kind of keeps a floor under the dollar. Now, it's probably overvalued from a long-term perspective, but you don't trade valuation that way. So I think for now, it puts a floor under it, and we'll just kind of continue this sideways pattern until something changes, till the cycles begin to change again.
Yeah, fair enough. Also on the calendar, Michelle, let's talk China for a sec. What's going to matter this week?
Yeah, China moved its budget meeting typically in October to this week, perhaps to be able to calibrate the size of its stimulus based on the outcome of the U.S. election. And so, details on fiscal stimulus is what we've been waiting for. It's the missing piece of all the announcements over the past month. And so the National People's Congress Standing Committee meeting ends Friday. Markets are hoping to hear a little bit more on the consumer side for some stimulus on that part. But at the same time, confidence has to start somewhere, and restructuring local government debt and help for the property sector could be welcome. But they may wait until either mid-December at a meeting at the Central Economic Work Conference, or potentially even as long as March. But I think at some point, if this is a long, drawn-out process, markets could start to lose patience.
It seems like the China trade might be reflecting some of that. It's kind of stalled out. Maybe a little lack of patience. Good stuff on the calendar, though. It could be a busy week there, too. We got a lot to keep track of. Thank you very much, guys. Excellent setup for us for the week. Kathy Jones, Michelle Gibley.